Mercy me. The necklace she gave me held a secret I wasn't ready for. Just the sound of it pulls like a thread on the soul, doesn't it? Some gifts feel heavier the longer you wear 'em. And sometimes, my dear, it's not the gold or the chain that weighs us down, but the truth tucked inside it. Before we settle in, I'd be ever so grateful if you'd click subscribe, share this story with someone who's ever held on to something too long, and leave a little note below when it's done. Your words mean more than you know. Because legacy, real legacy, doesn't always come in the form we expect. And loss, well, loss has a way of revealing who we are when no one's watching. Let's begin. The first time I saw the necklace, it wasn't on her neck. It was clenched in her fist, knuckles pale, lips trembling like she was holding back more than just tears. Mama didn't speak as she pressed it into my palm. Just looked at me with eyes so wide, so sorrowful, it felt like a goodbye she couldn't say out loud. I was 17. I didn't understand what she was giving me. Not then. Just a delicate gold locket, warm from her skin. But the way she slipped out the back door afterward, the way she never returned, years passed before I dared open it. I wore it through college, through heartbreak, even at her funeral. All that time I never thought to press the clasp at the side. Never thought it might contain more than memory. But the day I finally did, the day I found what she'd hidden inside, nothing was ever the same again. It was a Tuesday. Overcast, quiet, the kind of morning where the sky forgets how to be blue. I was dusting the shelves in the sunroom, old jazz murmuring from the radio, when Muffin, my old tabby, knocked over Mama's jewelry box. The top flung open, scattering brooches, earrings, and there, caught between the slats, was the locket. I hadn't seen it in years. Not since I tucked it away after Joel left. Too many memories woven in that tiny oval to wear it anymore. I picked it up slowly like I might disturb something sacred, ran my thumb across the hinge. Still warm, still familiar. But this time something clicked. A whisper of resistance. I felt along the edge and pressed gently, and with a soft pop the back opened. Inside wasn't a photo. Not like I expected. It was a note, folded tight, yellowed with age. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. One sentence, scrawled in Mama's hand, and it shattered everything I thought I knew. When I was a girl, Mama wore perfume that smelled like lavender and sun-warmed linen. She had a way of drifting into rooms, never barging in like the scent of rain before it falls. Gentle, present, unmistakable. She didn't talk much about her past, only said she came from a place that left bruises. Her family, I later learned, wasn't one you bragged about. And her history, like the locket she'd eventually hand me, stayed closed until it chose to open. We lived in a modest yellow house on Pine Hollow Road, a sleepy neighborhood lined with dogwoods and rusted mailboxes. Daddy died when I was 9. Car crash on the interstate. Mama never dated after. Said she had her hands full raising me and making ends meet. She worked double shifts at the bakery downtown. Always came home with flour on her arms and sadness in her eyes. Still, she made sure I had everything I needed. New shoes in the fall, pancakes on Sundays, and stories at bedtime she made up on the spot. That locket? I used to play with it while sitting in her lap, tracing the tiny etching on its surface, a rose curling around a crescent moon. I once asked if there was a picture inside. She smiled, a quiet sort of smile, and said, "One day, baby. One day, when you're old enough to carry what's in there." At the time, I thought she meant the weight of her memories. I never imagined she meant the weight of a secret. The note I found inside the locket read, "Forgive me. Her name is Grace." I read it twice, 3 times. My stomach knotted, breath catching like a snag in a dress hem. Who was Grace? And what did Mama need forgiveness for? The name haunted me for days. Grace. Not a cousin, not a friend, not any church lady I could recall from Mama's circle. Just 6 letters pressed into the yellowed paper like a confession whispered too late. I kept the note in my bedside drawer, tucked under an old photo of Mama laughing at the beach. But no matter how deep I buried it, it kept rising, like truth always does. 3 days after I found it, I called Aunt Laverne, Mama's oldest sister. Now, Aunt Laverne had a memory sharper than a bread knife and a tongue to match. She lived 2 towns over in a trailer with plastic flamingos out front, and a freezer full of peach cobbler. "Grace," she repeated, her voice turning stiff. "Now why you a skin 'bout her?" Something in my gut twisted. Mama left a note, I said. Said her name. Told me to forgive her. There was a long silence. I could hear the TV humming in the background, probably one of her daytime courtroom shows. Then she sighed. Deep. Heavy. You sure you ready for this, darlin'? I sat down. Tell me. She didn't waste words. Grace was your sister. The world tilted. She was born 4 years before you. Mama gave her up. Whole family swore to keep it quiet. It near tore your mama in two. I remember blinking at the wallpaper, the pattern swimming like I was underwater. Why? She was barely 19. No money. Daddy threatened to disown her if she kept the baby. She never got over it. I dropped the phone. I picked it up again, hands shaking. Where is she now? Aunt Laverne hesitated. All I know is she was adopted by a couple up north. Mama got one letter when Grace turned 18. That's all. The line went quiet. All I could hear was my own heart thudding like it was trying to escape my chest. Grace. My sister. And Mama had carried that secret to her grave. I sat there for hours holding the locket, wondering how many times she wanted to tell me, and how afraid she must have been that I'd see her differently. But I didn't see her differently. I just wanted to find Grace. I needed to. It's a strange thing, searching for someone who might not want to be found. I started with the letter. The one Mama had gotten when Grace turned 18. I'd never seen it, but Aunt Laverne swore she remembered Mama keeping it inside an old copy of Jane Eyre. Said she saw her reading it over and over one summer. Eyes misty, lips pressed tight. So I tore through every box in Mama's attic. Sweat ran down my spine, dust clung to my lungs, but I kept going past old report cards, Christmas ornaments, even my baby shoes wrapped in tissue. And then I found it. Tucked beneath a blanket from the hospital, spine cracked, pages yellowed. There it was. Jane Eyre. I opened the cover and flipped through, careful as glass. Page 198. Folded inside like a memory pressed into a flower book. The letter. It was postmarked in 1997. The handwriting was elegant, cautious. Dear Miss Evelyn, I hope this reaches you safely. I found your name through the agency. I don't want to disrupt your life, but I need to know where I come from. Who I come from. I don't expect forgiveness or answers. Just something true. My name is Grace now. I live in Pennsylvania. I've always felt something missing. If you want to meet or even just write, I would be grateful. But if not, I understand. With care.
Grace Larding.
My hands trembled. I read it again, slower this time, like maybe if I breathed it in deep enough she'd appear. She'd wanted to know. Mama never wrote back. Or if she did, Grace never answered. Either way, nothing ever came after that letter.
No visits.
No photos. Just silence. It was then that the guilt settled in my chest like cold stone. Grace had reached out. And now Mama was gone. Which meant it was my turn. I started searching online, phone books, old adoption records. I even joined a Facebook group for adult adoptees. Every time I saw her name, my throat tightened. Was she married? Did she change her last name? Was she even still alive? Night after night, I stared at the ceiling, the locket pressing against my collarbone like a question I couldn't answer. And then one evening, through a genealogy site I'd nearly given up on, I saw a post. Looking for birth mother. Born July 15, 1976. Charleston, South Carolina. Name possibly Evelyn or Eva. Given name unknown.
I'm Grace.
Hoping to connect. It had been posted 6 months ago, and no one had replied. I stared at that post for what felt like forever. Just stared. There she was. My sister. Grace. A full-grown woman now, with decades of life I hadn't been part of. I imagined her fingers hovering over the keyboard, heart pounding as she hit post, hope flickering like a candle in wind. And 6 months had passed. No answer. My chest ached with something I couldn't name. Not grief, not yet. More like the sorrow of a door you never knew was closed, swinging open far too late. I created an account, typed a message 5 times and deleted it each time. What could I say? Hi, I'm your sister. Our mother never told me about you until she died. I wear her locket now. It held your name. Eventually I wrote, Dear Grace, I believe I might be your sister. Our mother's name was Evelyn. I only recently found out about you, through a note she left. I don't know what story you've been told, or how you feel about all this, but I want you to know you're not forgotten. If you'd like to talk, I'm here. With love, Charlotte Whitford. I hit send. And then came the waiting. Days passed. I checked the site every hour. Read her old posts, comments, anything she'd ever shared. She was an artist, watercolors mostly, soft blues and misty grays. Lived in a small town outside Pittsburgh. Loved dogs. Lost her adoptive father 2 years ago. Never married. She didn't reply. Not at first. But one morning a week later I woke to an email. Just one line. You wear her locket? My fingers froze on the keys. Yes. She gave it to me when I was 17. I only found your note a few weeks ago. I didn't know until then. Her reply came within minutes. I've dreamed about that necklace since I was a little girl. I didn't know what it looked like, just something gold. Something that mattered to her. I hoped she kept something of me. I hoped she remembered. Tears spilled before I could stop them. I wrote back. She did. More than you'll ever know. She just didn't know how to carry the pain. I think she wanted to protect us both. And in the end, she hurt us both instead. A few minutes passed. Then, would you talk to me? Just once? I held my breath. Yes, I typed. Yes, I'd like that very much. But agreeing to talk was one thing. Saying the things that needed to be said, the truths buried beneath years of silence, that would be something else entirely. We agreed to a video call the following Sunday. I remember setting my laptop on the kitchen table, hands trembling as I wiped down the surface 3 separate times. Muffin curled at my feet, sensing something different in the air, that strange hush before a storm. When her face appeared on the screen, I lost my breath. She looked so much like Mama. Same sharp jawline, same storm gray eyes, even the way her brow furrowed when she tried not to cry. But where Mama had always carried a kind of quiet sorrow, Grace wore something different, like a woman stitched together by questions, barely holding at the seams. Neither of us spoke at first. Just looked. Finally, she whispered. I didn't think you'd actually be real. I'm real, I said, voice thick. And I'm so sorry. For all of it. She nodded slowly. I used to make up stories about her. That she was a ballerina. Or a missionary. That she left me on a doorstep because the world was too dangerous. And she loved me too much to let it swallow me whole. She loved you, I said. I swear she did. I think she just didn't know how to be forgiven. Silence again. Then she asked, did she ever think of me? On birthdays? On Christmas? I felt my throat close. She had a box, I said. Letters she never sent. Newspaper clippings. Even a pair of baby socks. She kept them hidden. Like a shrine she couldn't bring herself to touch. Grace blinked rapidly, tears slipping down her cheeks. She called you her brightest sorrow, I added. And I think giving you up was the wound she never let scab over. Grace turned her head, wiped her face with her sleeve. I always thought if she wanted me she'd have found me. I swallowed. Sometimes, when you hurt someone that deep, you convince yourself you don't deserve to reach for them. That's when she broke. She sobbed, raw aching. And I did too, the both of us crying across state lines, years lost, and the cold, vast sea of what might have been. After a long while, Grace whispered, I wish I could have called her Mama. Even just once. I reached for the locket around my neck, opened it, and held it toward the camera. She carried your name next to her heart, I said. Now I carry you next to mine. The weeks that followed should have been full of light, reunion, warmth, mending the broken seams between us. But healing, my dear, isn't a straight path. Sometimes it's a jagged one. And sometimes the pain gets worse before it ever gets better. Grace and I began to talk regularly. Phone calls. Emails. She sent photos of her paintings, and I sent her recipes from Mama's old journal. Chicken and dumplings, sweet tea cake, hush puppies that stuck to your ribs. But every joy we uncovered was shadowed by one echo. Why didn't she come find me? Grace didn't ask it aloud anymore, not directly. But it hung between our conversations like smoke. She grew quiet some days. Detached. Short replies. And then finally she said it. I know you loved her, Charlotte. But you got the years. You got the pancakes and the birthday candles. I got silence. I tried to soothe her. I didn't know. If I had. I'm not blaming you, she said, and her voice broke. But I need you to understand what it felt like. To be the secret. It stung. Because she was right. And I couldn't fix it. She paused. There's something else. My breath caught. I contacted the agency. They had records. There was a letter she wrote. The day she gave me up. I had to fight to get it. My heart thudded. She told them to never give me her name. Said she wanted me to have a clean start. No Thais. No trail. I closed my eyes. She chose to be a ghost, Charlotte. That was the night she didn't call back. Didn't reply to my messages. A week passed. Then two. The silence wrapped around me like a winter I hadn't prepared for. Had I pushed too hard? Had I tried to redeem Mama's memory at the cost of Grace's pain? I sat with the locket one night, in the dim yellow glow of the kitchen, and for the first time, I felt angry. Angry at Mama. At the silence. The fear. The choice to love one daughter in shadow while raising the other in light. Because while I'd lost a mother, Grace had lost everything. And that truth shattered something I'd held sacred. There's a loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from being unfinished. From reaching out and touching something you've prayed for, only to have it vanish again like smoke between your fingers. That was how it felt after Grace disappeared from my days. Her absence settled quiet in my home. I stopped playing music. Muffin would nudge the edge of my chair, sensing something not quite right, and I'd just sit there, staring out the window at the same camellia bush Mama used to trim each spring. I didn't blame Grace for retreating.
Merci mais, no.
She had every reason, but it hurt all the same. I started keeping a journal again, longhand like Mama used to, filling pages with letters I never sent. Words I wish I could say not just to Grace but to the girl Mama once was. 19. Scared. Pressured. Carrying a baby she wasn't allowed to love. I found myself grieving a story I'd never known was mine. In the stillness, memories returned. Mama standing at the kitchen sink, humming low and sad. Her lingering stares when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she used to touch the locket before bed, like it anchored her to something only she could feel. All those clues. I'd missed them. And now I sat with the pieces, unsure how to make them whole. One day, I found a package on the porch. No return address. Just my name in careful script. Inside, a small painting. Two girls beneath a weeping willow, their hands barely touching, one looking over her shoulder as if to say, "Wait, don't go." No note. But I knew who it was from. And it unraveled me. The painting sat on my nightstand for days. I couldn't look at it without crying, but I couldn't put it away either. There was something so heartbreakingly true in it. The unfinished reach between those two girls, caught forever in a moment of almost. One morning, I traced the brushstrokes with my fingers. The willow's branches bowed like arms in prayer, the grass below washed in muted golds and greens. Grace had painted us, though we'd never stood under that tree together. She painted what we both wanted, and what neither of us had ever really known. Connection. I sat there for hours with Mama's journal open beside me. I read pages I'd skipped before. Simple things. How she loved the way I used to hum in my sleep. How she feared she'd ruin me with her sadness. How she prayed, Lord, how she prayed, that one day she'd find the words to tell me everything. There was one page, torn at the edges, dated years ago. Her handwriting wavered, as though her hand trembled while writing it. I see her in dreams. Not as a baby anymore. She's tall now, quiet. She always stands just out of reach. I don't know if she's angry. I wouldn't blame her. I just hope she knows. I named her Grace because I believed in second chances. I only wish I'd had the courage to ask for mine. I pressed the page to my chest. She had wanted forgiveness. She just hadn't known how to ask. And I, her daughter left behind, was caught between two truths. That Mama had loved deeply, and also failed profoundly. That's when I realized, love isn't the absence of wounds. It's what you choose to do after you see them. I picked up the painting, ran my fingers one last time along the space between the two girls, and whispered, "We're not finished." 2 weeks after I whispered those words to the painting, I found myself back at the willow tree. It wasn't the one in Grace's painting, but the one behind our old church, where Mama used to sit after service, pretending to read her Bible while secretly watching the children run in the grass. I hadn't been there in years. I brought the locket. And a letter. I sat beneath that swaying canopy, pen in hand, paper trembling on my lap, and wrote to Grace as if she were beside me. I told her everything Mama had never said. Everything I never got to hear. Every ache, every regret, every buried truth. Then I folded the letter and slipped it into the locket's tiny compartment, where her name had once been alone. A few days later, I mailed the locket to Grace. No note. No explicación. Just the locket, returned like a compass pointing home. A week passed. Then another. And then, one morning while I was watering the rosebushes, my phone rang. Charlotte. Her voice was quiet. Hoarse. Like it hadn't been used in days. I got it. I didn't speak. My eyes welled. She continued. I opened it. I read it. Twice. I waited. Then, with a voice like soft gravel, she said, Do you still have that willow tree? The one behind the church. I turned toward it, barely whispering, Yes. Would it be all right if I came to sit with you there? It was my turn to tremble. Yes, I whispered. Yes, Grace. It would be more than all right. And in that moment, for the first time in either of our lives, the space between us didn't feel so wide. Grace arrived on a Sunday afternoon, the sky soft with overcast light, like the heavens were holding their breath for us. I saw her step out of the taxi at the edge of the churchyard, suitcase in hand, shoulders hunched as if bracing against more than just the summer breeze. She wore a blue scarf, Mama's favorite color. We didn't run to each other. We didn't cry. We just walked, slowly, until the distance closed and we stood face to face under that willow tree, with its limbs whispering above like a witness to something sacred. I spoke first. I wasn't sure you'd really come. Her lips quivered. I wasn't either. We sat, knees brushing, silence thick and kind. I read your letter again on the plane, she said. I kept thinking how strange it is, that I know everything and nothing about you. I nodded. That's how it felt with Mama too. Like trying to read a story with the middle chapters torn out. She smiled, faint and wobbly. Did she ever sing? She asked suddenly. I don't know why, I always imagined she sang. She did, I said, my voice catching. Only in the kitchen, when she thought no one was listening. We stayed there for hours, talking, laughing even, about how she used to imagine me as some perfect Southern belle. And I confessed I'd always wanted a sister who wore too much eyeliner and snuck me into concerts. She told me about her life, about art school, her fear of abandonment, the one foster mother who called her miracle on hard days. I listened. Every word. I wanted to catch all of it, hold it close, make space for what had been denied. And then near dusk, she asked if she could visit Mama's grave. I took her hand. Together, we walked. She laid the locket at the base of the headstone, brushing her fingers across Mama's name. I forgive you, she whispered. And I think somehow Mama heard her. Grace stayed for 3 days. She moved into the guest room, the one with the lace curtains and faded quilt Mama stitched the winter Daddy died. It felt like bringing home a piece of the past I never thought would return. Each morning we sat on the porch swing with steaming mugs of coffee, muffin curled up between us, watching the world wake up. The silence between us softened, became something like music. Not empty but full of breath and possibility. On the second night, Grace brought out a photo album. It wasn't ours. It was hers, pictures of her childhood, teenage birthdays, college dorms, a smiling couple she called Mom and Dad, her adoptive parents. Her real parents, she insisted, even as her eyes flicked toward the shadows. They were good to me, she said. But they never talked about where I came from. I think they thought love would be enough to erase the questions. I reached for her hand. Questions deserve answers. She smiled then, tears shining. So do sisters. That night we cooked Mama's sweet tea cake together. She cracked the eggs, I stirred the batter. The kitchen filled with sugar and memory. And as the cake cooled on the windowsill, Grace opened her sketchbook. I painted something new, she said, handing it to me. It was us, Again beneath the willow, but this time our hands were clasped. Firm. Present. Roots grew beneath our feet, intertwining in the soil. I think I'm ready, she said. To come back again. To know this side of her. To know you. And just like that, something broke and stitched itself into something whole. Not perfect. Not polished. But whole. Grace came back 2 months later. Then again in the fall, with a scarf full of leaves she collected from every state line between here and Pennsylvania. I'm mapping our connection in color, she said, laughing as the leaves scattered across my porch like confetti. By winter she had her own key to my house. And by spring, mercy me, she was helping lead Sunday school at Mama's old church. The same church where Mama once wept behind stained glass windows, holding her secrets close. People ask questions, of course. Folks in small towns always do. I told the truth, simple and plain. This is my sister. We found our way back to each other. Some folks nodded. Some blinked like they misheard. But Grace just smiled, gentle and sure. We made space for Mama on the mantel. A framed photo of her in her 20s, hair in a ribbon, eyes full of ache and hope. We kept her locket between us during meals, a small token passed back and forth like a prayer. One morning, Grace asked if we could visit the adoption agency together. I said yes. And there, in that sterile waiting room filled with ghosts of choices made long ago, she met the caseworker who'd once held her story in their hands. She forgave them too. I'm not angry anymore, she told me later. I'm just ready to live in the light. That spring, we planted a rose bush beside the willow. 2 names carved into a stone at its base, Grace and Charlotte, sisters found. Not sisters by timing. Not sisters by ease. But by choice. By love. By the kind of legacy Mama never had the words to give, but somehow, still left behind. The rose bush bloomed for the first time on Mama's birthday. Soft pink petals, just like the ones she used to press into her hymnals. Always dried flat between Psalm 23 and Proverbs 31. Grace and I stood beside it in silence, the spring sun warming our shoulders. A soft breeze lifting the scent of something sacred into the air. I wore the locket that day. She didn't ask for it back. She said, "It's yours now, but only if we share the weight of it." And so we do. We share birthdays and quiet nights. We share memories of Mama, both the sweet and the sorrowful. We share long walks under wide southern skies and stories that once lived only in shadows. Sometimes I catch Grace tracing the rose birthmark on my wrist, the one I used to be self-conscious about as a girl. It's funny, she told me once. It's like part of me was with you all along. I believe that now. That somehow, in ways beyond what we can name, love travels. Through blood. Through silence. Through the fragile threads of a locket clasped tight against a beating heart. We were broken. But we were not beyond repair. And the secret that once split our family wide open? It's what stitched us back together. If the necklace she gave me held a secret I wasn't ready for, touch something tender inside your own story. I'd be honored if you left a comment and shared it with someone who still believes that time can heal what silence once broke. Subscribe, my dear. There are more stories waiting to find you. And always remember, even when the truth arrives late, it can still arrive right on time.